Are you tired of self-doubt holding you back? Have you ever wished you could have the confidence to face your fears, go after your wildest dreams, and the tools necessary to live your best life? Hey there, amazing listeners. I'm your host and author of How to Grasp Confidence and Own Your Power. And I've made it my mission to help you break free from self-doubt and embrace confidence. Subscribe now and join us as we unlock the secrets to unshakable self-assurance. Let's dive in. Well, I am just really excited to take a deep dive into this episode today because I'm interviewing the one and only Dr. Rebecca Wynn. Rebecca, she is well known in the cybersecurity area, but she is also an award-winning podcast host of her show, Soulful, CXO, which I have been a guest host or a guest on. She is very well known in the industry, very well respected, and the plethora of knowledge and the depth to her background is, I've never met anybody quite like it. But she's also C-suite, and we're going to talk about what it takes to be C-suite confidence, the level of confidence that we have to have in order to have a position of high authority in a company, or industry. What does it take? Rebecca, thank you for being a guest on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and pleasure to be here with you and your audience.
Thank you. So, you are extremely well known in the industry, highly respected. You are the go-to person. Is that daunting? That sounds pretty daunting.
It can be daunting. It is kind of interesting. It's very sector specific, and it really ties into what we're talking about in C-suite confidence. So one of the things when I see C-suite confidence, most people, they end up, the anxiety goes up. You start breathing high in your chest. And I'll just tell anybody out there who might suffer from anxiety, or you're going to a situation like that. When I'm going into those meetings, I use the box technique. And if you haven't used the box technique, if you look here really quickly at your laptop or the monitor, if you start in the bottom left-hand corner and you breathe in, you hold it for 4 as your eyes shift from the bottom right to the left. Breathe out. And then you breathe back in. You go ahead and you go from the bottom left up to the top left as you're breathing out. And then you do the same thing around each of the corners. And that gives you about 10 seconds, 30 seconds, however fast or slow you want to breathe, just to reset. And I think that's always really important before you go into a big meeting. And I would tell people it works very well that if a situation happens where you want to just be honest, you want to blow up, take that 30 seconds just to reset and good things go well. But as we think of C-suite, one of the things I think in my head, and I changed that C-suite in my head to the confidence suite.
Ooh.
So the confidence group of people.
I like that.
That's who it is. And if you can think about steps like, here's a group of people who have confidence. They have confidence in themselves, and they have confidence what they're doing. They have confidence in their team. And they've prepared what they're going to say and how they're going to say it, so they feel confident in that delivery. That's who they are. Yes, there is a lot of pressure. Yes, there's a lot of responsibility. But if you're going to go speak to the group, if you can speak one-on-one, think about that's who they are. Because all of us end up having, one of the things I've had to learn in the year, every one of us has the imposter syndrome. Every one of us have times where we doubt ourselves as well. They're just a lot better at hiding that and eluding confidence. And if you think about that, no one wants to have a CEO or CFO or general counsel who's like, what am I going to do? Even though they might feel it inside. So that's the one thing that they've been able to do. They've learned some of these techniques, like I just showed you the boxing technique, to calm themselves, to that way they can think a little bit more rationally, because none of us think very well when we're in a heightened state. So think of it as the confidence suite, and they've learned those techniques. I wish I would have known that 10 years or 15 years or 20 years ago, but that's what I've learned over my journey of hard knocks.
Wow. Now, would you say that, the work you're doing, the industry you're in, I don't see a lot of women in these type of roles either, Rebecca. Am I wrong in that, or what is the reality there?
Well, I would say as a chief information security officer, 99.999999999 times when I lose out in a position, I lose to a male. I do not know if that male was more qualified than me. I would say they're not always more qualified for me. I'd probably say 98.5% they're not more qualified than me, but there is a pattern. And I would tell you that I have gone in an interview before where a person said, you know what, we're not going to hire you because we mainly have men who are engineers, DevOps, things like that, and they'll never listen to a woman. Wow. At least they were upfront and honest with me. And yes, people say, well, could you have gone ahead and, and sued them and all this other kind of stuff? I could, but at least they were honest about that biased. But we all have subconscious bias. But it is true that we do not have enough diversity. It's not only women. How about people who are different ethnic background? How about people with different educational background? We have a tendency that if someone's always been in the financial sector in a CISO position or CIO or CTO is a little different. They're a little more friendly that way. But a CISO position opens up and someone comes from healthcare, we won't even entertain if they have the skill sets to be here because they came from a different sector. And I think that's wrong. The underlying, we're protecting the organization and people's data, employees' data from the bad guys, bad girls, so bad actors, who they have to be fortunate once. We have to be fortunate all the time to protect that data. True, there are nuances and regulations. True, there's some nuances on how to deal along those lines. But most of us are very smart, educated people, whether it's a school of hard knocks, whether it's to be a formal education or a hybrid of the two. We can always be trained up and learn those nuances and the regulations, but you can't always learn those nuances on how to, treat people well, how to go ahead and make those tough calls. And that's the one thing that I see is that complete diversity is not there. So hopefully they answered the questions more holistically because it's not only women and it's not only women with blonde hair who are 5'3", myself, but there's other people out there having the same issue regardless.
No, it's a powerful outlook and perspective, right? So, of course, diversity in the workplace is important. We see this in the C-suite level at any corporation, right? It's predominantly men. So while as the whole, women are increasing in leadership positions, it's still not where we need to be. But especially something like cybersecurity, security in general, I think of that as very male dominated. So it's not always easy to keep our confidence high, even if we are as educated, as worthy, as able. When we feel like we have these adversities getting to the top, don't you think?
Yeah, it's true. And I think one of the things that is out there as well, I call it the pariah syndrome. I've written about it and said on my show, is there are an up-and-coming women who might be managerial and directors. And I would tell you, they gun for the women who are in higher positions than them. And they will undermine and do everything they can to knock them off that level that they've gotten to try and get there. That's also doesn't bode well for us. You should never get to the next level, regardless who you are, by undermining and knocking the legs out of the person that's in front of you. But I do see that a lot with women happening right now. And I've coined that is the pariah syndrome. That ends up long run, not only hurts them, but it hurts the top. And there are, just on a bigger level, there are groups out there that actually go ahead and try to help women and promote women in the industry. And what I mean by promote women in the industry, it's not only about helping them have an opportunity to go ahead and at least interview for those positions, but also to train them on how to be good human beings and how to be good mentors to other people who are trying to move up. And so that's the one caution I would tell people. It's easy for all of us to get zealous in our career, but don't get so zealous in your career that you want your career at the expense of someone else's career. I don't think if you're male, female, who you are in the world, that's never going to work out well long-term for you. But I would get involved in, EWS, get involved in professional organizations. There's women forums. There's places on LinkedIn, Help a Sister Up, that Teresa Payton, so the first female White House CIO, her and her team run. Join places like that where you go ahead and you can talk to other women or, reach out to people like me and you who we mentor a plethora of people.
I love that. There's a quote from one of my favorite books, The Science of Getting Rich. And it talks about competition. So in the book, he states, a competitor is a person that throws down the ladder from which they rise, suppressing others in their path. Let's think about that and digest that a minute. To be able to rise to the top and then to throw the ladder down and suppress someone else, or do it at the expense of someone else, right? Either way, it's a competition that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, I was talking to someone else the other day, and we were going through a little bit on this topic, but we said, how many women do we know who are CIOs, CTOs, or so CEOs, CIOs, or CTOs? And how many of them do we see them interviewing or promoting women CISOs? And how many of them do we see may have had a woman CISO, and then that woman CISO left for one reason or another, and then did they ever go out and grab another CISO who is another female over a period of time, 10 years, 15 years? It is amazing how many times that is no. So one of the things that happens too is if there is a woman in those positions specifically, it's usually the CISO position more than the CTO or CIO position, that if there is not a right culture fit for the person who was hired, and a lot of times you don't know the truth about a culture until you've been there 3 years, 6 years, or 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months, that then it's like, it's got to be all females. That does not happen when you generally hire a male. If you hire a male in the position and they leave to go on to another position, or if it's just not a great culture fit for both of you, they don't say, then I'm not going to hire any males whatsoever. But it seems to happen with females that once you have a female that doesn't work out for one reason or another, that they equate to every female in that position. So we have to get over that bias as well.
So powerful. A lot to unpack there, but yes, it is. One does not equate with all. That is such an important thing to talk about because I've seen it as well. And it's interesting, right? It's so many people, I feel too that, they get to that C-suite level and they want to get there because they want to make a change in the company. Right? They want to make a genuine change in leadership with the way something's organized or ran or operated or managed or whatever. And they say it's real windy at the top. I've heard that from a few folks. You get to the top, you think you're going to plant your flag, and then an avalanche ends up kind of coming towards you.
Well, I would say that there can be a lot of hot air at the top, and there can be a monsoon at the top, and there can be a big sandstorm at the top.
It's like all 4 seasons. I like that.
But the one point is I want to go ahead and elaborate on here, if you will allow me, is going into a company because you want to make a change. I've done that before, and it has not worked out too well. For me, one of the things is I think we need to spend more time that when we're going to take a position to be very careful not to take a position because we need the money. Don't get me wrong. I know times are tough for everybody right now. I turned down 2 positions in the last month because it ended up not being the right fit and a little bit of bait and switch when it came to contracting with me, and I trusted my gut. But one thing we have a tendency to do is we pay attention a little bit to, let's be honest, we pay attention a little bit that's happening in the interviews. You're trying to get to the next level interview, but not really making notes about those gut checks, those red flags that we had. They're like, you know what, they said this, and they went, and I'll give you an example. I had a partnership that I was looking at, and one of the things that they kept saying that I had been really C-suite light or Fortune 500 light, and they kept using it as a dig. So they kept saying pedigree light. That didn't sit well for me, and I'm like, you're trying to sell the company to me, and you're really insulting me. But I went on the next level, and next level, and got to contracting, signed the contract, but then I did pull the contract. So I talked to some really good mentor friends who will tell you the straight, and they're like going, why in the world do you want to work for a company that off the gate degraded you, insulted you? You had that red flag. I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't do it, but I would look honestly, is that in your heart where you want to be? Would you ever hang around people who just insulted you? We have that when we interview at companies. We have those checks, but we don't seem to take those notes afterwards and say, it's okay to say, you know what? I'm not going to go ahead and go to the next level. Thank you for asking. Wish you well on your journey, but it's not the right fit. So when we get into a company and we're like, I'm zealous to change you. No, they want us to come to the company maybe to make some adjustments, but what they really want us to do is the mission of the company. And when I say about that is, don't get me wrong with the mission that's on the wall. I've spoken to enough company, or like you repeat the mission to them, and I go, wow, that sounds good. Where'd you get it? And like, it's on the wall right behind your head. But when you look at their website, when you look at what they put in the press, when you go ahead and you have those conversations with them, what do they say really they want to accomplish as a company? I just want to be number one. Is it that they want to be number one at all costs? I just want to go ahead and make so much revenue. If you're a person who says, I want to put humans 100% first before revenue, they just said revenue comes first. So maybe that, for example, that's not going to be a good holistic fit for you. You're going to come in from a complete humanistic standpoint. They're coming in on product first, revenue first, doing whatever you can do to go ahead and get that contract done. You know what? While you're spending time there, you're missing out on that company that had that golden opportunity that aligned with you as a person. And I've learned that the hard knocks by lining myself up with companies that really weren't the true best fit for me. So anybody out there, when you're looking at being a C-suite and a president, all that, you got to get yourself where it's a company that's aligned to you and your values, and they're going to want you as part of really that confidence suite who is making that holistic change, instead of you're coming in to make a change that they don't want to be on that journey.
Yes, times 1,000. Say it from the rooftops, honestly. You're talking about having a compass for your soul, right? And you don't want to be stuck in a place that's not serving you, that where you feel trapped, where you feel like you can't expand as a person, that you feel like you're in a box. And it happens even at that level. I've had a similar experience as well. Last summer, I turned down a C-suite position. Why? I felt it in my gut. And my instincts told me, no, this isn't for you. And I'm glad I listened. And we have to do that more. I think that we can't say that enough. It's the higher powers talking to us at that point. We just need to listen to it. There's something there. And sometimes it may take a couple of months for that to be revealed, but it always shows through, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think one of the things that people forget when you go into any situation and you're being less than who you are at your heart and soul, hence Soulful CISO, what happens is that really eats at your resiliency, that eats at your relationships. And it takes a long time to recover. You hear people talk about burnout. Burnout is not only about that I had to pull a lot of physical hours. I think one of the reasons why at times I've had to pull a lot of physical hours, not only by the demands that was put on me that were unrealistic, but part of it is the physical toll for gritting your teeth for 20 hours a day as you do that. And your cells know about that. And if you go ahead and look at enough of us in our writing, if you listen enough for speaking, what we're talking about, that's when we're talking about resilience. And if you're a company out there, if your top leaders do not have resilience, when you do have, and you will have, that business continuity issue, when you do have that disaster, when you do have that incident, when you do have that branding and reputation management issue that happens, they do not have the personal strength to keep carrying that through. And Teresa Payton actually made a good analogy of this. And I talked to her about the stress of being in the White House. But what she said is that if, when she had to think about flying in an airplane, that because you're like, of course, I'm going to go ahead and put the oxygen mask on my child first. But if you really don't put it on yourself first, what chances do you have really of your child making it out of that bad situation? So you think about us and our resilience. If we really don't take 100% ownership of protecting ourselves, we won't have that resilience for ourselves and for the people we care around us. And that means at times saying no to that job or walking away from that position or that company, knowing that the journey that they're on is not the journey for you. And one more day, one more second you're spending there is keeping you away from your true happiness. And maybe that makes taking less money. But think about it. If you made $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 less, but you were content way more days of the year than you ever were before, wouldn't it be worth it? I think so.
I think so too. And that's why we're on the same wavelength, and there's just absolutely no money is worth your peace of mind, folks. I mean, anybody that's listening to this, and if you're trapped in a toxic work environment, a toxic workplace, if there's workplace bullying, if you know in your heart that this is not the job for you, if it feels like it's sucking your soul out of your body, guess what? Things don't change if things don't change. You have to sometimes make the change and take those hard measures. And you know what? We're never going to know if, I would have been a billionaire. It doesn't even matter. Your soul knows. And that's that gut instinct that you're talking about too. You just know, and it doesn't matter. Follow your gut and listen to that intuition, don't you think?
Yeah, I think one of the golden questions I always ask people, maybe I need to change the dollar amount, but if you, regardless of what position you took, but you had to do something, okay, you can't just, I'm going to sit on the couch eating bonbons, unless test tasting bonbons was the position. But you got yeah, you got $70,000. So whatever you do is $70,000. Even if you run, the biggest corporation in the world, or if you go ahead and you do whatever, you're going to make $70,000 a year. Ask yourself that question, and what would that be? What would that look like? That's where your heart and soul really is. And it might not be that you can switch there overnight. But it might be that that's what you go ahead and you start taking those little steps to be able to do that. Because, people forget, we spend like 2,080, most of us probably 2,500 or 2,600 hours a year doing what brings us in some income. I've had years where every one of those hours has been gritting my teeth. I will tell you, for me, you can pay me $1 billion anymore to try and do one of those other positions that I've had to leave. I wouldn't take it, because the toll it took on me as a human took me years to recover. It took me years to get that toxicity not only in my system, but out of my cells, to build relationships back up. In some cases, not to have that traumatic PTSD anymore.
Wow.
It's not worth it. It's just not worth it.
PTSD. So
Cyberbullying will give you PTSD.
wow. Was this happening with just people in the industry, or?
Yeah, there are, I've had it at companies where I worked before, where that's the other thing that you don't always see about C-suite and positions like that, where the pressures that you get put under to attempt to do the wrong thing because you have it to someone else's betterment for you to do that. That's why you'll see that I will never go ahead and put my stamp of approval or say, hey, I understand why that CISO has falsified that document. I understand why that CISO did X, Y, and Z, or CIO or CTO, because I've walked away from those situations. I would say you won't always find them on my resume because I can hide them under other places, but I have walked away from bad situations like that. But one of the things is to talking to great mentors who gave me the courage to do that. Because one thing I kept thinking is, how can I keep changing myself to try and change them? Sometimes there's just people out there who, you know what, that's the avenue they want to go down. I'll never go on there. And that's why I'm only known for my consulting. I will tell you the truth regardless. If you know the truth, then we can handle it. But I'm not going to bury the truth. I'm not going to falsify truth. I don't do that in my personal life, and I'm not going to do that in my business life. So sometimes you have to take hard stands. Sometimes there's people in the C-suite who have to take hard stands and make hard calls that way too. And if that's the type of person you are as well, know that you're not alone. If you listen to my show, Soulful CXO, I have a lot of CIOs and entrepreneurs and CEOs and stuff like that the reason they're on my show is because we've all walked away from bad situations like that. And every one of us have walked into a better future because we had the courage, and we also had good mentors who are good family around us who backed us in that decision. Sometimes it did take us 3 months. Sometimes it took 6 months, 9 months. Sometimes it took us a year or longer to find that next thing. But one of the things that we found during that time, we grew as individuals. We found better support systems. We found better organizations to align ourselves with. Mm-hmm. And when we look back in those years, maybe we weren't working full time to make money. Mm-hmm. But what we did do is we did a lot of good internally for ourselves, and we paid it forward in the industry in a positive way. So the positive ripple effect was way more than we had done for the years that we worked for those companies.
Absolutely. The positive ripple effect. If you're not doing something that really fills your soul, you're not creating a positive ripple effect. And you know what? It won't benefit anyone else. No one benefits, really. You don't even benefit. It causes, tremendous physical burden on our bodies as well. And like you said, it's within ourselves. So sometimes it can literally take months or years to detoxify from an environment like that. And I talk about it in my book as well. Part of building confidence is your physical environment. It's who you associate with. And the people we associate with most are the people we work with most, right? I mean, it makes sense. So, and if our physical environment at work is incredibly toxic, eventually it leads to thoughts that are toxic and patterns that are toxic and habits. And you know what? It does start to seep into every cell of our body. And then we start to get physical manifestations of it. Our jaw starts gritting our teeth. We might get a rash on our skin, hair loss. But coming out of that environment builds that confidence back up.
Yeah, you actually build new neural pathways in your brain the more that you're around in those toxicity. That's why people say, I'm in this toxic environment. I'm in an environment that doesn't energize me. Maybe it's not toxic. Maybe it's just like, I hate doing this all the time. It doesn't bring me any joy. Mm-hmm. You start building new pathways in your brain. And one of the things is, it's interesting when you leave that, it takes a while for you to build your confidence back up, and because for so long you were less than you. So
Yeah.
one of the things I want to encourage everybody to remember, and I had to remember myself, I'm preaching to myself as well too, you are a unique human being. You have unique skills that no one else on this planet have. And I'm not saying that lightly, I'm saying true. Your experiences, who you've been around, what you've seen, what you've digested, and your innate skill sets are unique to you.
Yeah.
So anybody out there who's trying to get you not to be you, they're not your tribe. They're not your people. It is true that when we go into a position or we go into C-suite, there are certain expectations. But I only can be, and I only ever aspire to be, the best Rebecca I possibly can be. So if I'm in that position in the C-suite and you want me to be somebody else, hire somebody else, hire that person. I can never be that person. So look, when you're looking for companies, make sure too, and how you can tell, oh, well, Joe or Mary or this or that, if they're speaking that way, are they really hiring you? Or do they need a body, a butt in the seat for that position, but they want you to be this other person? You can't ever be that other person. So how are you ever going to bridge that? You're not. It's kind of like when you date somebody and they keep talking about their ex. I've been in that situation. I've broken up with them and I said, you need to get back with X. Really? Be peaceful, go on yourself. I don't want to be someone's second best. No. Don't allow anybody to make you their second best. Don't allow anybody to have you be their second choice. You want them to allow you to be the choice and allow you to be who you are and the great things that you are.
Oh my gosh, mic drop. Relationships, work, companies, friends. It applies to anybody, right? You're associating with. If anybody makes you feel less than you, drop them.
Put yourself first.
Put yourself first. Yes, I love that. Now that is an empowering way to end a podcast. But Rebecca, it has been such a pleasure. The knowledge that you shared today is so inspiring. Thank you for being a guest on the show and for showing people the way.
Thank you. I appreciate being on the show. Please check out my podcast, Soulful CXO. Check out with Tara. Follow me on LinkedIn and reach out to me anytime if you need some support. Happy to try and help.
Awesome. Yes, definitely connect with Rebecca. She's amazing. And I'll put your link in the bio. But thank you for everyone, and we will catch you on the next episode. And that's a wrap for this episode of Grasp Confidence. Thank you for joining me today and investing in yourself. Remember, building confidence is an ongoing journey, and each step you take brings you closer to the empowered, fearless version of yourself that you were born to be. Don't forget to visit my website, follow me on social media, and purchase my book, which is available on Amazon. Thank you for listening. We will see you on the next episode. Stay confident.